Okay, welcome back, everyone. Tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. So I've got with me one of my colleagues, Cameron, and he came to me with an interesting problem involving expression trees and mock. So we are going to take a look at having a little bit of fun with that and see where we can land. So tonight, rather than working on the material design library, I'm going to be playing in another project that I work on called AutoMocker. So for those people who are unfamiliar with it, it is a library that basically allows you to decouple your unit tests from a constructor. So a common problem that comes up when you're writing unit tests is you've added a new constructor parameter, and oh shoot, now I've got to go update my 80 tests to take in this new constructor parameter. So AutoMocker is a way to kind of smooth that over so that you don't have to go and update all of your tests that don't care about your new constructor parameter, and just kind of make that a little bit easier. So let me switch screens. Cameron, welcome.
Hello?
I can see that you are containing your excitement well, for what it's worth. So let me real quick. I'm gonna grab the link for AutoMocker because this sounds like something cool and fun. So for those people who are interested, this will be the library we are powwowing on out on GitHub. So whoop, there we go. So that's where we're going. Cameron has set this up. So do you want to kind of walk us through what you were wanting to do, and then we'll see what we can do to make dreams a reality.
Right. So, if you use AutoMocker, you've probably, or just mock in general, I guess, you've probably done this a lot, where you do a setup and you call, like, the square method, for example, it.isAny int this pattern, and then maybe you have a returns for something.
Okay, I have to fix
Um,
this. Whenever you're making up integers, the answer is 42. Okay, carry forward.
that is correct. Um, so this is fine when you have one parameter, but if you have some source that takes like 10 parameters or more,
Mm-hmm.
this is laborious and horrible.
Right. So, for those people a little unfamiliar with this, I'm going to call out a few other things that are subtly happening here that I don't think is always apparent to people. So, when you write a lambda expression in C sharp, you don't actually know the type of it. So lambda expressions, when you write it, just seeing this x lambda whatever, I don't actually know what this is without looking at the signature of the setup method. And I'm realizing that's a little small, so we're going to go bigger. Uh, in this case, your lambda expression can either compile down to a delegate, usually a func or an action are the two common types that you'll see everywhere. Or the other alternative is they can actually get compiled down into what's called an expression and building up an expression tree. Now, an expression tree is just a nice, easy way of codifying and looking at this lambda. So it's not actually an expression tree isn't a delegate that you can invoke. You could compile it into one and then invoke it. But instead, what it is a meta level programming of the actual lambda itself. So with that in mind, when mock is doing this thing here, if we look at this, assuming I can learn my own keystrokes. Yeah, sure, I promise to not do bad things with decompilers. When we go and look at this, you'll note the key part here is rather than it just being some func, it's actually an expression of some func. So it knows that it can automatically convert that lambda down into this guy, which is great. This gives us a nice, easy way of, say, building these things up dynamically. So if you ever wanted to, say, dynamically construct a func or an action, this is how you could do it, or similar. And so as part of this, it's important to note that this lambda, if you were to actually set, like, say, a breakpoint here, you will never hit this breakpoint, no matter what you do. Because this isn't a delegate that gets invoked, it's an expression that gets evaluated. And so the same thing can apply if you're doing, like, say, entity framework. Most of your lambdas there, though not always obvious, are usually expressions, and those aren't things that get invoked. They are things that get parsed and converted into SQL in that case. In this case, mock uses it to parse to figure out, oh, what invocation is this? And so this is effectively, this it is any is a magical built-in mock class that just says, hey, match on any invocation to square with any integer. Great, because we could also do 42, and then this would only match when somebody called square with 42. And that just doesn't sound fun. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing real quick. Public class controller, right? I'm just going to write out what this would look like if somebody was actually writing this test. Oh, and fix the warning. My service, because service, and then autocode for the win, autocode for the win, right? Okay, so you can imagine it. You might do a mock like this, var system under test, or sut, as you'll hear me use it all the time. Controller. So for anybody who's unfamiliar with this unit testing setup, my YouTube channel, the pinned video, is a talk I gave to a user group all about unit testing, and it is wonderful. And sorry, I'm just going quick. Actually, you know what? Because all foo methods return ints, square. No. What did I just tell you? If you're going to make up numbers, you make them good. Cert are equal. No, the square of 42 should be 3. I am convinced. So basic unit test, arrange, act, assert, but our goal here is to make the arrange portion a little less laborious. Okay, what is... My cursor has decided it is losing its mind. I'm going to close and reopen the file real quick.
I take a small objection to the name controller, only that we don't always want to directly invoke controllers to test them, but yes, you can directly invoke me to test it. Yes, that's fine.
Does that make it feel
I accept
better?
that name.
I'm great at making up names. Equals meaning of life. I love it. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so let's look at what we can do to go through and build up this expression. So let's start with what we want. So it is any int, right? This is where we started of what we wanted to do. So let's go through, and I think let's just, rather than doing this guy inline like this, let's pull this guy out, right? And let's var expression, right? We're just going to put him there, and he's obviously unhappy because he doesn't know which end is up. So we will tell him. So this is a func of my service that returns an int. All right, and then we will auto code for the win, and I'm just gonna, that doesn't need to be there, that doesn't need to be there. Muchas better. Muchas better. Okay, so you were unhappy until I put the semicolon in there. Okay, that makes sense? Clear as mud. All we've done is pull it out. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab, so there's another wonderful thing. So I'm just going to, so I cheated and read ahead because I do that every so often. But there's this wonderful documentation. Well, that is a nice, long, simple to read link. I'll probably shorten it. So about debugging expression trees in Visual Studio. So I'm sorry, I know you're a writer fan, Cameron. Work with me.
That's okay.
But more importantly, there are a couple pretty nice visualizers that you can get to look at these things. So the whole point of pulling that expression out was so that we could do it. So I went through ahead of time and I installed an extension. So if people are interested, readable expressions or expression tree visualizer, links to both documentation pages. Haven't actually tried them before, so we're going to see what happens. there's a very real chance that this idea collapses and we have to do this the harder way. There were build errors. What? Cameron. So
Wow.
here's how we fix these build errors. Look,
Okay.
I fixed them. That's how you fix unit tests, right? Add
Yeah,
comment.
that's how I do it. Yeah. Kenny loves that.
I love Cameron's background.
No, this is just my old room converted to a knitting room, converted to my temporary office.
See, I actually legitimately walked into my living room, took a picture of it, and started using that as a background. It's both fake and real all at the same time. Not my current one. This is not my real background. Okay, so here's what we got. So we installed this lovely guy, and there should be. Hey, look at that. It bothers me that I see 2, but let's open this guy up. Okay, so this gives me, unfortunately, exactly what we had a second ago, which is not quite what we wanted. So let's see if we can do, okay, A, dark theme, awesome. Use declare out. So do you, oh, so that's actually kind of nice. So we're going to check all the boxes then, because this is usually one of the harder part. Comment quoted lambdas. Oh, that's beautiful. I like this. Okay, so one of the hard things to note is that when you're building these guys up, you kind of have to use a little bit of the reflection API for things like types. But then actually seeing what this guy does. I'm a little surprised this guy only shows that. I kind of want to go the other way. Hang on. Hang on. What better way than to demo this? So that was readable expression. Oh, that's right. This guy here, the reason I didn't install it, despite the fact that it looks so beautiful and wonderful, is because its installation thing scared me. But what could go wrong? 2019 is what we are running, but I'm also running a preview edition, so hey, this may not be fully tested. That's great. Let's see, required folder structure, install a visualizer into either of the following locations. Visual Studio install path. So what I'm looking for is visualizers. More importantly, Common 7 package. That one. Debugger and Debuggee. Oy vey. This is not quite what I expected. And then packages. Common 7 packages, debugger, visualizers, framework. I guess they also allow for going straight into the my documents page. I'm sorry, for those people unfamiliar, in ye olding versions of Windows, rather than calling it documents, it was called my documents. It was thrilling and wonderful and amazing. And everyone loved it, except for everyone who hated it. Visual Studio version, visualizers. There is nothing here. So I think what I do is I just take everything and put it here. We're going to try this real
What could
quick.
go wrong?
What could go wrong? Do you want to stop debugging? Yes. Currently, yes. And then we're just going to remember what solution I had open. And I'm going to assume that they intentionally set their zip file up to be as simple as possible. Given how popular this is, I can't imagine that they did it differently, but let's give this a shot. Note to self, next time, test. It's good to test, isn't it?
The whole point of today, isn't it?
That's actually a
Making
good
testing
point.
easier.
Testing easier. Well, and
Nice.
I generally, or I should say not generally, I firmly believe that if writing a test on something is hard, you should stop and question why it's hard. Okay, so expression tree visualizer. Excellent. So this would be the part where I question everything I just did, and in either of the following. These are the exact same path, right? Right? I'm pretty confident. Da, da, da. This may be fraught with peril, and we may just abandon all hope. Okay, we're going back to the old way because I don't want to spend time debugging somebody else's extension. Okay, so let's start breaking this down on exactly what we have. There should be a nice, easy way to look at this guy here. Come on, you can do this. I promise it won't hurt. Let's go through and see, because I know my visualizer here is going to be hijacked, but does it also hijack my locals? Excellent. We will do this way. That is tiny, tiny, tiny font. Okay, so the simplest way to go through and start building up an expression tree, in my opinion, is to literally write the code that you want and then examine what the compiler generates as your expression tree. So, for example, if we zoom in here, right, the root level of expression is system link expression of func of blah blah blah, right? Basically our top level type. But we can start driving down into this a little bit deeper, because you'll note this thing contains a body, which is a method call expression, which kind of makes sense, right? The top level thing that this lambda does is invoke a method. It takes in some parameters, and if we look at those parameters, we will note that there is a parameter expression, right? And the parameter expression has a name of x, right? And there's a type that goes with it, so it's a typed parameter expression. And there's things like a return value and whatnot. So let's start building these up. So the thing that this is what we want to get to. But what we have to write to start with, and I think how we're going to do this is, let's just start up here. Public static class mock extensions, right? And so let's pretend like what we want to actually write is mock dot setup all, right? And you had initially done something like this, right? Where ideally that's kind of the signature that you were hoping to get to.
Like x dot square, yeah. Give it my
right.
Right.
The big issue here is if we go to write this up, so we're just going to have it void return for the moment, and static, let's see, setup all, and this needs to be a generic of t, and it will act on mock of t, right? And so the issue becomes what we put as this. What are you complaining about? It must be a reference type where t is a class. Hush now. Hush now. The issue that we have is what do we pass here to be able to make this actually work? So you could try something like delegate, right? But this won't quite work because there's no way to have the compiler, at least currently, convert this into a generic expression, because you can imagine if you had an overload to square, because imagine hypothetically that somebody wanted to square strings, right? which is a legitimate thing to do in C#, but then how would it know which one to set up on?
Right.
Which gets really hard really fast. So I think what I'm going to propose, it's not pretty, but I think what I'm going to propose is we just take in a string for the name and we blow up if we find more than one overload. Because without more information, it's going to be impossible. And I think that will get us close to what we want. Is that agreed?
Makes sense.
Wow. We have a lot of warnings and stuff turned on in this project. Maybe I should have picked a more friendly project to play in. Okay, so step 1. Var type gets, all right, let's just do var method. We're going to do type of t. So in this case, our t is my service, right? And we're going to go get method, all right, method name. So this comes with some obvious limitations right out the gate. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, sweet. We've got nullable reference types turned on. Love it. That's probably just me. So if method is null, throw new exception. Boom. We will refactor later, if that makes sense. Okay, so we got the method. So now we have to start effectively iterating and building up what we're looking for. So we need to start with something simple. Let's create our parameters. So var parameter expressions gets expression. Why, thank you. I'm glad somebody thinks it's amazing. So we will take our method and we will do get parameters, right? And then we'll just select on that. So in this case, parameter lambda. And apparently we haven't included link yet. And boom, boom, boom. Parameter type. Okay. So the key entry point for expression trees is buried underneath this expression object. So underneath this guy is all kinds of goldenness. So all the magical things that you can do in an expression, you can get a nice, easy static factory style method from here. So if you want a go-to expression, you can build it. Don't. But you
Yeah, I
can.
hate that.
Is true, is false, all kinds of awesomeness stuff. So that is generally where we're going. But in our case, we know we're going to start with a parameter expression. So we will do this, and just for fun, we will to-array it. Right? Oh, we're going to, hang on, I just realized something. I'm coding like old school, like a crazy person. We got C#9. We use C#9 when we have it. It makes me happy.
Huh.
It makes me very, very happy. Here. Huh? How much does that make your head hurt? But isn't it prettier having all the types on one side of the equals?
I mean, I get it. It'll take time, I guess.
You're not sold. We'll work on it. Okay, so we've got our parameters, and ultimately what we want to get down to is an expression. Let's see, call. Yeah, so we want to get to a call, and more importantly, what we want to do is it needs so the call one, boom, I caught it. Takes in two things. It needs an instance to act on and a method info. Well, conveniently, we got the method info right up there, so that's helpful. But we also need an instance to act on, right? So we will go, leave that null for the moment, but we've got our method. So we got to build up our var method call expression, right? So where do we get our instance from? Bear in mind that this is where it is. That is not a rhetorical question. So in the case of this expression here, what is the instance that's being acted on? I'll do it like that so it looks pretty. Does it make sense?
Oh, were you asking me? I was.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Just wait till I make you drive.
Oh boy. Well, I was. This is a good time to mention it now. My live share crashed like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, well, you should have
I've
said
been watching
something.
just a Skype call.
Oh, you should have said something. Because I can give you a better screen share if you'd like. Is it
Sure.
blurry or is it fine?
Oh, the screen share looks great. Just
Oh,
live share crash one.
okay. So in this expression, my question being, if we're trying to build up this call expression, the call needs two things, an instance and a method info, right? In this case, so spoiler alert, the instance can be null in the case of a static method invocation. But this is clearly not a static method invocation. So the question then comes, what is the instance that's being acted on in this expression?
Right. Um, trying to look around, but I don't have the screen share. But um, I wanted to say it's on line 41, but
So
it's mock
yes-ish.
object.
The answer is actually simpler than that. In this case, it's X. So let's actually try this. So if we have an expression here, so delegate, D. What you can do is you can do something like this, right? You can take an expression tree and actually compile it down into its corresponding delegate, right? And now once I have a func, I can just invoke it, right? And when I invoke it, it now wants an instance of my service, which is great. Sure, we can just feed it an instance of that guy. And then poof. So exactly what you were saying before is this is the the passed in value is the instance that's being acted on, right?
Right.
But for the purpose of the expression, the expression itself, what it's actually acting on is the incoming parameter. So the instance is the incoming parameter. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
because we are building up an expression of a func of something, right? Because at the end of the day, what we want, the final return will be expression lambda func my service. This is not going to be quite accurate, but we're going to go with it for now. My typing is really, really hard some days, right? Why are you squawking? Oh, because we have a problem, Cameron. You nested the classes, which is unfortunate because that's what
I
I
did
told
do
you to
that.
do. Kevin, take part in No Shave November. Actually, no, and I actually plan on addressing that after the stream tonight. Or at least, let me rephrase, Sean. I did not intentionally take part in No Shave November, possibly accidentally. So this guy here is ultimately going to be building up this, or I should say, we'll call it var final, right? So this is what the last result is ultimately going to be, because this is functionally what we need to get to so that we have something to pass into our setup method. Because what we want to build up is some expression tree that we can pass into a setup invocation. Simple, right? No, nothing challenging. So in our case, what we are looking for is, well, I should say, we are at this stage currently, and we need to go back. So the call requires an instance which is going to come from the parameter, which is going to come from this guy up here. Let's think this, or I guess I need to wrap my head around this too. These parameter expressions are going to map to the int, right? Because we got the method info of our name, which is square. And so when we grab the parameters of it, we're going to get the int, which is what we need for these. These guys, I guess I did this wrong. We don't want to turn these into parameter expressions. We want to turn them into it is any expressions. And that's what we want to pass in.
Okay.
Yes. I believe that is accurate. Let me just check because I think what we want to do is that. So, because that's going to be a call. The call that we want to pass in is a Hey vey. Okay. It's always hard to know whether you start going outside in or inside out. And I feel like I'm going back and forth and can't decide. Well, we started on the inside. Let's keep going through there. So these should not be parameter expressions. These should be converted into it is any invocations. So we need this to look like what? Don't worry, that's not a trick question. That's me literally questioning what. So let's look.
Yeah, we want the parameters on the method we're
Yeah, so this shouldn't
the name
become
of.
these
Right.
shouldn't become expression parameters. These should become it is any
Right.
thingies. So let's dive inside of this guy. So if we look inside of here, the arguments to the instance method call expression. There's the 0th one. These themselves are. I am sorry that is so tiny to read. We'll do something better. So these guys themselves are. What is this? This itself is a method call expression on the it is any method. Okay, so what we need to do, so we need to create, for each of those things, we need to create method call expressions. Okay, that's simple enough. Okay, and they need to call the it is any method. Okay, so let's start with this. Var it type gets type of it. And I'm going to be really clear here because it is not exactly clear in this situation.
Okay, fair.
Var is any method gets it type get method name of it is any. Now there's something important to note here. So when we call into here, we're going to land on this guy, but this guy is a generic method, right? And so when we get this method info, this is going to be an open generic where the generic parameter hasn't been specified yet. So let's come down into here. So this guy here, let's convert him to nope, blocks. Thank you. So we need to first var, we need to close over the generic, close any method, right? So is any method, do you remember the magical invocation for closing?
Make generic method.
And the type that we send into this guy?
Should be the incoming parameter.
So this guy here. So it goes something like that. Let's see. Is any method, what are you squawking about? Dereference possibly null method. We're going to do that for the moment because null checks. Yeah, we'll add that as a to-do. Okay.
I will not pass code review.
That's a good point. Adam, if you're watching, Please don't let that pass code review. Okay, so we need method call expressions then again. Right? And so in this case, I believe what we do is we just go null. I can't remember whether if we need. I can't remember if there's a null here or a constant. Is it gonna squawk? No, it's explicitly decorated as a nullable. So I'm gonna assume it's hip to the idea. Close any method. Okay, so let's do this. Breakpoint there. Rather than breakpointing there, I'm going to breakpoint there just in case we want to look. So let's debug this test. Let's take a look at it. So ambiguous match found. That's an exciting. Oh,
You leave the second square method.
I did because I'm not that bright. So the very failure case that I had called out would be a bad idea to leave there. Yeah, I left it in there.
Closed, working as intended.
Exactly. See, now you're getting it. Okay, so that looks. Oh. Okay, so if we expand it. Whatcha! Right? So that looks. So I'm specifically checking the. What is it? Is it? Whoop. Yeah, my paint skills are awesome. But it did set it up as we expect. So object null and method it is any. So we're going to let it run to the next breakpoint and just confirm, but I'm fairly confident that's what we saw was the internal argument. So method int32 is any, object null. That looks correct to me. Okay. So step 1 done. So we have our parameters, and now the next thing we need is an invocation onto this guy. So expression invoke, and so this guy here takes in a expression as well as the arguments. So I believe what we want. So this is going to get a little weird because we're going to have to do it both. So to generate this guy up, so this is an invocation. So we've got expression invoke, but he needs a source expression for the invocation, and then arguments, right? Which arguments are easy. Parameter expressions done, right? That handles that. So that gets me to my arguments. That gets me where I want to go. This guy here to do the source expression gets a little more interesting because now I'm trying to generate this portion of it, right? So I need the x lambda square. So I think what we start with is, let's get x. So var x expression gets expression dot parameter. So in this case, we are going to just name. So you could go unnamed, right? Like that is a thing you could do, but we are going to name it because I want to be able to look at it and not hate my life. I think the string goes first. So we'll just call it x for now to make it match. So the question then is, how do we know the type of x? I guess what do we pass here, right? Because we got to give it some type. So down here, the x is a I my service.
Right.
Right? So given this expression, the type, I believe, is just type of t.
Yep, I think so.
So let's go var input type, right? And we'll just, you know what? Type of T. That looks simpler. Oh, did I get them backwards? Come on. What is your problem? Show me. Oh. See, all I wanted to know is whether the string came first or second. I knew there was a string in there somewhere. We'll do that. Okay, so that gives us the source, because now what we want is to actually call the method, right? And so in this case, we do have, for this method call, we do actually have an instance that we're going to act on. And the instance is our x expression, right? Because it's x dot. And now we need the method in question, which I think is fairly easy. We should have it called method, right? So we will do this. Method call expression. Clear as mud.
So far, so good.
Okay. So I think now we've gotten ourselves down to this part. Let's go one step further, and then we're going to test again. Lambda expression gets expression dot lambda, right? Let's see here. So we need let's see. So the body is going to be an invoke expression, right? And then I'm already missing my parameters. Tail call false, and parameters will be a new list of x expression. So I think aside from the fact that this guy is strongly typed and this guy is a loosely typed expression, I think we've gotten ourselves pretty close to matching. Let's find out. And more importantly, we've done it in a somewhat generic-y way. Except for this. So what is your problem here? Incorrect number of arguments supplied to int square parameter method. So what did we do? Int square int parameter name method. Oh, because this guy is what? Just wanting a straight. So we've built these guys. Invoke. What is the magical incantation then for... I'm missing something in the middle here. Invoke expression. So like... what am I missing? What am I missing? Oh, the description. Creates a method call expression that represents a call to a method that takes no arguments. That is not the right answer.
It's not the one.
Yeah, so this guy here, I am missing a... So let's go down here real quick and let's investigate the original one again, because we are missing some level of this lambda, and ideally visualizing this rather than stepping through the locals window. Oh, Ferex, thank you for the subscription. I appreciate it. Okay, so we've got an expression, right? Tail call false. So we got that much right on the top. This guy here is a expression of big long lambda expression. Okay. The body itself is a instance method call expression. Okay. Instance method call expressions. So here's the only problem I have. Okay, let's do this. The easiest URL to communicate, source.net. Instance method call expression. Poof, that guy. This guy here is a method call expression. Okay, so that guy should be, if we look here, this guy gets invoked from various places, blah, blah, blah. Show me your constructor, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. One of these guys will be a static constructory method. Oh, on the call, we just called the wrong overload. That's what we did wrong. Okay. Okay. So that's what we did. We called the wrong overload. Okay. So we come in here. Method. Parameter expressions. Look at that. That looks better. Right? And then I believe we can omit this. And I think we just go to here and we go, method call expression. See that? Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Oh! It ran.
It got very far.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking at this. Does this match what we wanted? It's surprisingly accurate. Now okay, so now we'll take advantage of that little visualizer, right? So if I do this guy, huh? We build ourselves an expression.
That looks pretty good.
I think what you mean is awesome is the word you're going for.
That was the word, yeah. Looks great.
Okay. Well, so much for the hard part. Okay. So we can get this much, but what we still need to do is at some point in time, we need to actually call mock.setup, right? Because we really do need to feed something into here.
Right.
So here's the problem. If we look at the setup methods that exist on the mock object, we've got this teeny little eensy weensy problem. So one, there's two overloads, right? There's the one that takes the expression of action, right? And then there's the one that takes the expression of func. So is this a void returning method or not, basically? So at some point in time, we're going to have to deal with both cases. For now, I propose we just pretend like this one doesn't exist and we'll just hand wave and whoo, it goes away. But the problem being here is this is once again a generic. So we've got a couple choices. Now, oh boy. G-Bound 1, thank you for the subscription. I appreciate it. So the interesting part here is we've got so options available to us. We could either A, invoke the setup method via reflection, which is, it would work. The problem being is with reflection, you eat the reflection overhead costs of performance. So it's like, okay, do we care? Maybe we don't care. Option B, we could tell this guy something about our method such that we wouldn't have to deal with it. Which one do you like? So that would mean specifying another generic, which would then mean having to specify this T, because you can't You either specify all your generic parameters or none of them. There's not really a middle ground.
Right. I would probably prefer reflection.
Okay.
And just make the invocation easy as possible. It's kind of the whole point of the method, is make
Okay.
mock easy to use.
So I'm gonna put all of this into a single function right now. I will propose that before this gets PR'd, we clean it up, because we've already identified at least 2 code paths with like void and not void, and then more importantly, there's probably going to be some code reuse here. So I'm gonna just build up the expression to pass to the setup method. Invoke the setup method. Okay. Oh, there might be a third choice. We're going to do it the hard way, and then we're going to come back and try what I think will work as a fun way, but I don't know if it will. We'll do the hard way first. So let's start with setup method. Actually, do you want to drive this part? Do you remember how to invoke via reflection? Because this is a fun one.
I can sure try.
Go for it.
I get no IntelliSense, so don't judge too hard.
I was going to say, you can either type on live share or you can tell me what to type. The advantage of you typing is it's easier for me to drink the Mountain Dew.
I can type then. I don't have the live show link.
Oh, you don't? Hold the phone. I have a button for just this situation. Whoop, not that button. Whoop, and we're back. And let me give you a new link. And there you are.
Take two.
I realized it apparently doesn't show the live share link just in the tooltip. So if you keep your live share thing collapsed, there's nothing visible. It's almost like they anticipated people abusing it for live streams.
What? I'm joining.
It says you're in, for what it's worth.
All kinds of suspense.
See? Woo! Hey, look. I see a Cameron.
Okay.
So, walk me through it. Step 1.
Okay. So, thinking out loud, we want to invoke the setup method that exists on our new instance of our mock. So this mock, the one we're getting in with our static. So mock dot. Oh boy, I'm pausing for the pop up. There's no IntelliSense, so. There's a way to. I don't want to use the method name. Like I don't want to use this one with the string. There's another one I'm thinking of that I can't remember the name of.
Get methods.
Methods. Sure.
It just returns you an array of method infos. And so then the question is, how do you want to filter them? Because we know there's at least 2 in there.
Right.
And I can... oh, that's right. I can bounce around without messing with you. So you might have to look at my screen share if you want to see it. But the 2 that exist in there, they both have setup, right? There's a difference between them on the return type, and there's a difference between them on their parameter. I suppose you could also differentiate them based on the generic parameter as well. So there's at least 3 places you could use to differentiate them. Because when you do that get methods, you're going to end up currently with all of them. So I guess that's the first thing, is you should probably filter by name first. Let's get ourselves down to just setup methods.
I'm guessing it's just called name.
Yes, but you lose points for not using name of.
Yeah.
You can leave the static there for now. It's fine. We'll fix it.
Let's just complain.
A little, yeah.
Mock is not null here. Okay, well.
Here, I'll fix it for you.
Thanks. Okay, I was gonna say, I can jump. Can you jump back to that decompiled
Oh,
mock
yes, I can.
setups?
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, I think the type of T we're being passed into our setup all method is the same as the type.
Yeah,
That
so
would be the
this
IMI service.
yeah, this T and this T will be the same T as here.
Right.
You are absolutely correct on that. So I guess then, given that you've taken the set of all methods, or I guess all public methods, right? And you filtered yourself down to what should be just these two. So then the question becomes, what else do you put on your where condition to get yourself down to just a single thingy? Because ultimately
Right.
that's what we want.
So in this case, we're dealing with that second one.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking an expression, returning a T result.
Yeah, we're going to just hand wave and pretend like the first one doesn't exist for now.
Right.
Fair. So once we filter it out, so anything to get ourselves distinct, and we'll just pretend like void returning methods aren't a thing.
So I want to, assuming that we're going to be branching on like if we're void or not, I want to filter on the return type.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the best approach, but that's just the easiest one.
Perfectly valid. So let's go ahead and do that then. So on your X guy here, I'm gonna do this so you can see the IntelliSense. So you do have a return type that's going to come back into you. It is just a system.type object. So given that guy, how would we check to see if it's an I setup of T or an I setup of T something else?
Right. I wanted to say we could build up the type we expected. So using that make generic type. I, assuming you can do make generic type with 2 parameters. Is that correct?
You could. So you're envisioning building up a type object that represents I setup of T result, right? And comparing to say, are these equal? That's fair. So let's do that actually above this because we're getting big already. So let's go ahead and create the return type then. I realized I clicked to put the cursor somewhere and realized I have literally no control of your cursor.
That is true. Okay, so if we want to do
yeah. So you can lead with the type of, right? Because that'll get you into what you were looking for. Yep. And you want to put a comma in that. And then here, I will help you with the auto code for the using.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
And so the first one's easy. It's just a T, type of T.
Yep.
Second one is harder.
Yeah.
So
what is the return type then that you want?
I built it up in here. I saw it on the expression when we looked at the
Yep. You absolutely
use.
did see it.
I did see it.
And then I hid it from you. So
I think I stored it in a local variable, but we should probably. I think it would be on this.
it will be, but it's actually easier than that because this method call expression is doing an invocation on this method here.
Oh, right.
So I would argue you can probably just get it from here.
Right.
Just as easily.
Method is method info. This has a return type.
Correct.
Okay, so now I can filter for return type equals. I say not so confidently, knowing that this is
Why is this still squawking? Here, I'm going to just... There. Hush. Apparently it is really, really, really picky today. So that is perfect, and I'm actually going to do one slight change. So rather than a where, we'll do a dot single, because ultimately what we're looking to be down to is a method info at the end of the day. And if
sure.
we don't find the setup method, single will throw, and that's probably a good thing, which means, you know, if mock ever like significantly changes their API, this is going to fall over, which is good. That's what we expect. Here will be that, well, proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding. I don't think this will work. Huh? Did I do this?
I don't think we want this.
I
I don't know how it
agree.
exists.
I'm going to assume at some point in the auto coding land, I must have auto coded into not what I wanted. Okay, let's go with that. Let's debug this, and then we're going to see if this actually works.
For me, it shows each line's a compiler, so for my end, I'm very confident it won't work. Imagining that you're not seeing compilers, but
so for starters, your let's see, expected return. Can I really want to click this name header to sort alphabetically. That would make me happy. Visual Studio Team. That would make me happy. Okay, so for starters, though, your setup, I believe, is absolutely correct, right? So as far as your expected return type, here is where I'm going to let this step over because I'm pretty sure it'll throw. Yeah, sequence contains no matching elements. So let's come into here real quick, and I'm going to grab this, right? Slap that in there. Where x dot name equals setup, right? Setup. We'll just look at this. So you'll note something about this. Do you see why your code failed?
so the I setup, the second one is the one I want.
The second one is the one you were trying to get.
But
there's a difference between the return type and here. If we look at this, I will go a step further, right? Var methods, just slap that into something that makes it a little easier, right? And then methods sub1 dot return type, right? Because that's what you were attempting to match on.
correct, yeah.
If we look at this guy, this is your type object that you are matching on. And so if we come in here, you know, you got the key thing here, you'll note it is an I setup with the little backtick, I guess. Backtick 2, so it's a generic method with 2 generic parameters. And if we come down here, though, the oh, it doesn't show it in here. That's dumb. I thought it was going to show it in here. It showed it in this upper one. You'll note when it actually renders this guy out, though, my service is specified as the first generic parameter. Note the second generic parameter.
Oh, it's a T result.
It's a T result. Because, and this was the subtle difference, right? Is T result isn't known on this method until after you actually have an invocation of it. Because normally it will infer this from the expression you give it. In our case, when we're just iterating over the methods on the type, we don't have a return type parameter yet.
Right.
We have to actually specify it, because when we're matching here, what we have on this guy here is still an open generic. So we actually have to close over the type. So you can't. So this is absolutely correct of what we want to make this method info into, but it's not there yet. Okay.
Right.
So with that in mind, how do you want to get down to setup method?
So we can't give this. So we can't filter by return type. That's what we're
Correct. But we
asserting.
can still use the return type. Because remember, in both of these here, there is a difference in the return type. These are not the same, like even though they're named iSetup, they are two different types, right? One is iSetup with a single generic parameter, and the other one's an iSetup with two generic parameters. So one option could be to check and see, does it have two generic parameters?
Okay.
The other thing we could theoretically do I guess it won't let us get away with that, will it? Is we could just check and see, is the type iSetup with two generic parameters? So on your type object, there's a generic. I can type generic type definition. Where is generic type definition? Get generic type definition. That's what I want. So what you could do is actually something like this, right? Because get generic type definition says, give me the open generic, right? Don't worry about exactly what it is. I'll close over it later. Trust me, trust me, trust me. So we could match something like this, and I believe this one will work.
Yeah. Now seeing again, the obvious answer to me is just count the number of generic parameters on the return type, which is the
Let's see.
boring way, I think. But
Let's see. Get generic arguments dot length equals
yeah,
dos. Like that?
way less fun. But I think that is readable and easy. So
Cool. Let's confirm that you've gotten it, and then we will give it a run. Hopefully, thinking. Oh, turns out if you're gonna debug the unit test, if you right click in not a unit test, it doesn't actually run. Hey, look at that! It found a setup method. Okay, so and I will point out once again that this method info that we got is not actually a closed generic yet. So we'll just
right.
point that out. Okay, so you're up again. You got your method info.
Okay. So I
Invoke.
want to. I don't need this to be an expression. I can just invoke it with reflection, right? So
Correct.
um,
You want the IntelliSense?
a little bit, yeah.
I can pop it for you. What do you want to see?
Um, initially, I was thinking, I want. I think the type name. Um, I'm just scrolling. Oh, invoke. Okay, easy enough.
Okay. If it wasn't clear, invoke takes in two things: a source object and then an array of parameters.
Okay, well, the parameters are easy because. Ooh, I say that confidently. Maybe it's not as easy as I thought because we have an expression, right?
Well, so We'll jump back here to this guy because this is the guy we've picked up.
Oh, it wants an expression. Okay, okay, good.
Yeah, so it wants an expression, but I remember the second parameter to invoke takes an array of objects. So that'll get you half of the way there. Yes. So the only limitation there is on that array initializer that you have, it's creating you an array of lambda expressions, not an array of objects.
Okay, you're also sync compilers. That's good.
Boom. There. Okay. So you still need a source object.
Right. I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking back to this not close over generic, but I don't think it's a problem yet.
You are half right.
Is it a problem now?
It'll be a problem right about
here.
Yeah, right about where that period is before invoke.
Right.
But go ahead and get the source object tied in, and then we'll go ahead and pull that. So we're invoking the setup method. What's the instance that we're actually invoking on?
Just reading this again, making sure this is making sense.
Okay, while you do that, I'm gonna the best usage of regions ever. For all those moments when all you want to do is collapse some code. So that will get you what you want. But you are correct that we need to deal with the subtle problem of the generic. Right. So, and I think you hit on it a little bit earlier, is we need to actually change this guy to be a generic method. And I think you called out the method. Do you recall?
No.
Here's a hint.
Okay, make sure method.
So it takes a params array of types. What are the types?
What did I press? That's weird. Okay, I think that
You're close. So in this case, remember it's the method info that we're making a generic type of. So we don't need to specify t here because that's coming from the class generic parameter. For the method, we only have a single generic parameter. So if you try to pass 2, it will not be happy with you.
Right.
So I think that gets you a little better. So,
right.
Happy with it? Should we try it?
I'm cautiously optimistic, but
I like cautious optimism. I also like Mountain Dew, and I'm running out of that. So we'll go with optimism. Okay. Let's see. Cannot set up because it is not accessible to the proxy generator. Blah, blah, blah. So, I have good news and bad news. This is very exciting. So, this guy is blowing up. So, 1, your method invocation worked. You were able to invoke the setup method because this exception here, if we view details, and we come over here. So if we look at the call stack on this guy, I'm sorry, the stack trace on this guy, you'll note this guy here, we want the inner exception. So if we look at the call stack, or the stack trace on the inner exception, you'll note this is actually inside of mock. So even though you blew up, we did successfully invoke this guy, which is awesome. That's what we were going for. The only problem being is this guy is saying that the method is not accessible to the proxy generator, blah, 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 because it's not accessible, make it public, blah, 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 blah. So short version, the thing that we did to hide it from the warning is causing us grief. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this.
Oh, right.
And I think then the problem goes away. Because in general, the thing that you're testing is in a different assembly, so it's probably public, I hope. And look at that. You passed. And you got yourself back a setup that theoretically we could do more stuff with. Winner! You are not nearly as excited as you should be.
Oh, I'm just waiting for the next part, which is going to be, I think, hard too.
Oh, come on. Hold on. We got to test this a little bit more. So string other thing, right? So right? So let's just confirm that we change this guy up. So we don't need you anymore for the moment. Let's just confirm that this guy does still in fact work, because that's the whole point of this, is we want it to take n parameters and go to town on it, which would be great if it could do that for us. Did I right click in the wrong method again? I really wish that context menu would be a little... Oh, Cameron. Look at that.
Now I'm excited. See?
See? Oh, you gotta go quick to get the... Boom. Oh. It's very faded, but it's there. It's totally there. Just really, really hard to see. Okay, so we've got this guy going. And then you, unfortunately, alluded to the next teeny little thing. Something that may have piqued your interest. What is the next problem?
Right. So we have to go from object nullable to this I setup of t result, I believe.
Right. So what you're driving at here, and if I can make it a little var setup, right, is right now the thing returns a setup, and ultimately we want our method to return something similar, right? So
right.
I'm gonna X lambda this guy back in real quick. Let's see, square 42 Kevin, right? And then we will auto the return, and then we got this issue, is we would like our method here to do something similar, right? Is we want a setup back.
Right.
Right? So ideally, we want to get that back. And right now, we are not returning that back. So, how do you want to handle it? Because there's a couple ways we could go about it.
Right.
So option.
I don't want to say just cast it to the I setup of t of.
So you
result,
could do that. You could make every call on setup all do that. You know, do the I setup of I my service int, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you were suggesting is, and here, let's change this. This guy is going to be object for the moment and return that value, right? Why is that
right.
squawking? Possible null reference return. Okay, return nullable object. Fine. Picky. Fine, and this guy will return nullable, and this guy will just... I'm very close to nullable disable for this file. This close. It's a little obnoxious when you're trying to show something that has nothing to do with nullable reference types. right? So
Right.
this is a thing you could do, right, and make all of your callers cast.
It gross.
Gross is the correct answer there.
Gross.
I will propose an alternate signature. What about that?
Okay.
Because I believe if we come up here, T return. Right? Because now what we can do is this guy can handle the cast because he's gone to the effort of, I guess, let's T result, right? We'll change this up. Is this guy's gone to a bit of effort to actually get to this point, right? And fine. Oh, this is unhappy because this should be an I setup, right? Of T result. Blah, 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 blah. No, collapse my region. That was the whole point of putting it there. I set up T result. I guess we'll go nullable to make it all match. And everybody's happy. Right? This does leave you with my service, right? How does that make you feel?
I'm okay with that.
Because that would get us roughly to what we wanted, right?
Right.
And I'm going to do this real quick, just to prove that, because we actually at some point we should actually like run this unit test to completion, right? So we're gonna do this, and let's start because this is the basic mock stuff, right? So we're gonna just prove to ourselves that the test that we wrote here works.
Wish we could pull the type off of line 59, a name of, but it's a name of, so we know at some point what the return type is, a typing of it.
Yeah, well, and the thing with name of though is this thing doesn't actually exist post compile.
Right.
Okay, so test 1 does in fact pass with this. So if we switch to our new guy, right, what we should be able to do is then come in here and do returns 3. Dereference of a possibly null reference value. Okay. Dang nabbit, we're just doing this. Problem solved.
Adam's watching and wincing.
He probably is. There'll be a moment where my phone buzzes and it'll be something about, feathers and tar and dear heavens, what have you done? But the unit test passes.
Okay.
So that makes us feel a little bit better.
That's half the hard part.
Well, it more or less works. So there's several other things in here that we could do. I kind of want to try something real quick. So now that we've got proof that this guy works, right? I wanna just try something very bad, if you don't mind, because I'm pretty sure it works. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Return dynamic.
Oh no.
Don't say it like that. Say it like, oh no. Set up. Run unit test. I wasn't sure if it was going to be okay with this. Oh, that is a bit of a problem. This thing doesn't have the right type. There's not a great way of handling that because of the generic. Yuck. Okay. Putting back the original stuff. Okay. So where would you like to go from here? So we've got at least minimum proof of concept that this thing works.
Mhm.
What do you think would be next on the chopping block? Because ultimately it would be nice to like actually include this in the library. Because I
You
think
have to
this would be
handle
a reasonably
the
nice addition.
action case.
Say again?
You have to handle the action case too. But yeah.
That's a good point. So I'm going to get rid of square async and void that sounds like a great one. So
Yeah.
Given that wonderful implementation that clearly is perfect, let's go up and how about set up all handles void returning methods. Okay. I'm going to let you fill in the rest of this.
Okay.
Or at least the rest of this test. So, have at it. So, there's the expectation, and we now have a square dance method. Because as you can tell, I can't dance.
The one that returns.
So though at some point we do need to actually do like the assert is going to need to have something, right?
Right. We can do. There's a. I hadn't tell us that, so I'll tell you what it's called. There is a method on here that's like a was called or similar.
You're looking for if my cursor was where yours was, you were looking for verifiable.
Am I?
Yes, because then your assertion looks like mock verify all.
Okay.
Give or take. Because I believe that
I
is.
have to call it.
Well, yeah, that will require changing up the Cameron class because currently Cameron only foos. He doesn't square dance.
I can square dance. That's fine. No.
No, I think you were right.
Okay.
You can just expression into it. This Cameron class is largely a wrapper in because it feels awkward to not have a system under test. Oh, and he actually goes with full sets of people.
Okay.
I like the clever use of params. Though I'm fixing your use of object.
Okay. So I wanted this to.
You did it at params. You technically don't actually care.
Oh, that's right. I was myself.
So clearly, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, and that works as our assertion to verify that the thing was actually done. Should we test it? All good data-driven development runs the test while it's read. And I have good news
Okay.
for you. I'm pretty confident, yeah.
It'll go red.
Yeah, it went red. And if you care for the exact exception, the type of void may not be used as a type argument. So it turns out that if you try to put void into a generic argument, it no worky. And you also have a bit of an issue with the way we've developed our signature here too, right? Because ultimately this int no longer makes any sense. I'm sorry, not that int. That int. I'm going to collapse this. This is confusing me. Right? Because
Right.
ultimately the signature that we want probably shouldn't have int on it.
You can make a overload that's just the one type parameter.
Like that. It's almost like we're at the point where we should refactor our method above.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so I will help with a bit of IntelliSense and do that much there, that much there, that much there, and yeah, something like that. So let's see, how do we go about refactoring that? And I will get rid of my region because my region is yucky. How should we break this up? Because we've got a bit of a monolith that doesn't quite even fit on my screen.
Right. So we diverge, I think, just down here. The rest of this should work with the void, I think. I say somewhat confidently. So I think at this point we can refactor this into its own private method, maybe. That's something like get setup method or something, and returns the method info.
Okay.
I think.
So I was mostly with you, and I completely agree with the assertion that basically down on the invoke portion of this is where the methods are going to end up deviating.
Right.
Alternate proposal: if this up here is identical, perhaps this is what we should pull out first.
Okay.
If that seems reasonable.
The inverse makes more sense. Sure.
So we will do extract method. And what are we calling this thing?
I think new method sounds great.
Excellent. I was worried it was going to be simple and straightforward. So we've got a bit of a... So the way this thing did the extraction is a bit wrong, in my opinion. I say a bit. The way it did it is definitely wrong.
Yeah, I don't like this.
Well, it doesn't compile, so there's that. Most specifically because new method gets invoked here by passing in method name. It outputs method. Yeah, there's some stuff here that's bothering me. So it's got this weird, yeah. So this signature irks me, and I'm just gonna do that for the moment. I think that now makes it happier. So let's start with this. What is wrong with this method?
Well, I have a method with two out parameters. Just
Yeah,
from like the API standpoint, I don't like that at all.
I can agree with that. So I would propose we move those into... Let me check something real quick. I was going to propose that we move those into like a value tuple return, but I want to check and see. That may be problematic.
Oh, are you
Yeah,
targeting something old?
net 4.5.
Oh,
So let's not do that. Let's not go with the value tuple approach. Um, Here's what I think. So the lambda expression is arguably the most important return from this method. That would be my assertion. So I would propose that the lambda expression becomes our return type.
Sure.
If that, you got it?
I'm happy to type the AC stuff.
Perfect. So go ahead and whack that out parameter. And then, yeah, go ahead and fix the down below. And then fix the invocation up above as well of new method. I think the only thing it's unhappy about is the out at the end of that line.
Oh, right.
Because that then needs to go away. Okay, so there's that. And I'm going to help with a little bit of refactoring. So now that we've got this, how about get expression? Maybe? Okay.
Sure.
So we now have one more thing. And this signature feels weird with the extra out parameters. I wish I could put my finger on it, but it feels yucky to me because it's sort of hacking around the lack of multiple returns. I'm somewhat tempted because what does this guy actually need? He wants the method info object for no other reason other than to get the return type, right?
Right.
I'm going to propose we do that.
Right. We can do that now that we have that
Now that we
second
have
generic parameter
that secondary generic parameter, which means method info no longer needs to be an out parameter.
Right. We can put this in.
Which means our method no longer looks ugly. Which makes me very, very happy. And we're getting closer to something that looks a lot more reasonable. Okay. And I think, just checking. Yeah, because we do have nullable reference types turned on, and I was just curious if lambda expression needed to be a nullable, and I don't believe it does. And I don't actually think we need this generic constraint on here. It would be dumb to not have it be a class, but there's nothing in this method that actually requires it.
Okay.
I don't think. Yeah, at least not here. It'll definitely be required up here and whatnot. Okay, so now that we got that, and we said that this invoke the setup method is going to be different from each of those, let's go through and do it. Tell you what, I'll help you. There, I did my part.
Doesn't seem fair, but I'll take it.
I wrote what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Or you ignore that one of them's blank and 2 of them exist of just curly braces.
It's not a blank. It's got white space.
Well, that's a good point. Thank you.
That counts.
Yes.
Okay. So we want method info.
Yeah, and I'm gonna scroll this. You get extra points for even going through and handling the new lines. Well done.
The writer default. This is a real tangent, but the writer default is the period is on the line preceding, and I really don't like that. I prefer this style.
I
don't know
would
what
agree.
the standard is, but
I would be shocked if writer didn't have a configuration setting. Most of those like formatty things, writer, in my opinion, usually has more knobs and widgets to fob than anything.
you can change it. It's just that's the default. I was surprised that.
Yeah, that does feel a little off.
Come back and clean that up. I think there's a. Again, first of all, we're getting an array of methods, and we're doing a link call on it. I don't know if what if this can be combined into one.
I don't believe it can, and I think so. Don't quote me on this, but I would suspect that the reason is the reflection APIs predate the link APIs, which means they were written pre lambdas, which is why they work together. But for example, there's no like enumerate methods. It's get methods returns an array.
Yep. This will be a void. No, will be.
You want me to flip you over to your metadata real quick?
If you could.
So line 371, that is the new one.
Right. So it's just type of T.
Right.
It's right here. I could have seen it right here, but I didn't. If our head. Okay. Seeing lots of code reuse. This definitely be cleaned up, I think.
So, possible null reference return. Here, I'll help.
Oh, thank you.
At some point, we should probably actually deal with those and do appropriate null checks and throw reasonable exceptions.
Right.
So you're very close, but I'm going to point out one key difference here. This setup method is not a generic method. The T
Right.
parameter is from the class definition, remember. So yeah, so this is even simpler than the other. So you've got that. And then here we can actually get it even simpler, right? So we can our setup all for the void return methods, because it can now infer the generic parameter from the mock object. Let's run test. And we come over here, go red, and victory! Once again, you are not nearly as excited as you should be.
Oh, I saw the red on foo, and I was like,
Oh,
oh
I'm
no,
sorry.
what
Here.
happened? But
I believe foo. We put foo back. There. Does that make you feel better?
yes, I'm much better.
Woot woot woot. I'm deleting your new text file, by the way, because reasons. Sweet. What else do you want on this thing? It's kind of cool, isn't it?
This was MVP, so I'm satisfied with this.
Yeah.
I thought it would be harder.
Harder.
Not that it was easy, but I thought it would be.
Expression trees are typically not, how do I say this appropriately? They're not overly difficult. They do require you to kind of unscrew your brain a little bit and think about what's being generated. But I very much like the approach of I'm just going to write my expression down, see what the compiler generated, and then replicate that. Right? And then genericize it out. Like, in general, that, in my mind, is the easiest way to kind of set it up and debug it. And I'm sure if I spent a little more time with those extensions, because that was the one thing I was really hoping to have that extension do is, not that one, this guy. So if we jump back, this is what I was hoping to see here, right? Is if you can see the expression rather than going through like your locals or your immediate window and just kind of step through, it becomes very obvious that I need a lambda expression. I need 2 parameter expressions. The body of my lambda should be an add, and it should contain left and right. Right? It's very easy to see how that gets built up. and done. And so you can start to go through and effectively reverse engineer just a little bit more out of this. So I think if I had spent a little more time, and ideally if these guys would have had an installer rather than an Xcopy deploy, that would have been a little helpful. But being able to see this helps a lot. This is also why, because the question usually comes up that I see with Entity Framework where people want to do a Lambda and they want to put in the curly braces just for like formatting or something. And EF whacks them upside the head and says, no, that's not a valid, I should say EF. The compiler whacks them upside the head and says, no, that's not an expression anymore. That's now a delegate. And then this is the reason, is everything that you put after that Lambda has to be an expression, not a statement block. Because statement blocks can be arbitrary code, whereas an expression, there's some more rules around what's allowed. Obviously, you could build out a lot, but you kind of have to one-line it and use liberal amounts of white space.
Right.
Cool. So, if this is MVP and we're happy with it, I think what we should do is a couple things. So one, let's just check something real quick. Does this guy have, I don't know if this thing has, does have extensions, type extensions. They're internal. So I'm a little torn, and I might have to raise this question up and see what other people think of. So I think having our mock extensions is a good thing, right? This is definitely something that should exist. But AutoMocker itself has some convenience methods. Nope, that is not what I told you to do. Try that again. Okay, my key bindings are not set up correctly. Collapse to definitions, please. It has some fancy setups on here for get mock, for being able to do setups directly. So with AutoMocker, rather than having to always like extract the mock and then do the setup on it, it's got some effectively short-circuity things to do it. And so I would imagine that it might be nice to have similar setup all functionality on AutoMocker directly. And I don't know if it makes most sense to have this be on as an instance method or as an extension method. I think an instance method, because it looks like what I likely want to do is have access to this or similar. So probably directly on here. But I think that would be the other thing I would want, is I would want the extension methods, the mock extensions class brought in. And then I think I would want this. And the only question I would have is, do we put the mock extensions inside of the extensions namespace or up at the root? The extensions namespace makes sense. However, it does pose a discoverability problem. And right now, there's very few things outside of the root namespace until you get into like some of the resolver stuff or whatnot. We have our own array class? Oh, we do. Forgot about that. Pro tip for performance in .NET 4.5 is recreate array.empty. Because array.empty doesn't exist in 4.5. So I think that might be one question worth doing. So let's do a couple things real quick. So I'm gonna propose that we just do a teeny bit more cleanup. So I'm gonna go up here, and I think, what are your thoughts? Does it make more sense in the extensions namespace or at the root?
I think it makes more sense in the extensions namespace, but discoverability is a problem. Like, I can see someone doing the old way and just not knowing that this exists, which makes me want to put it in the root more than.
Okay, so let's start there then. So I'm going to take this lovely class, rip it out. I'm going to put it right here instead. And then we're going to just auto code our way to victory. So auto code button, auto code button, auto code button. Come on, go find it. I promise it won't be that bad. What are you squawking about? Oh, look, needs XML comments. To do. That sounds like a great comment. To do. Okay, so that handles that. Oh, naturally this guy needs it as well. See, this is why we started in the other one. So we'll do that to begin with. We should still have both of our tests, and I think I'm going to rename this to let's see, mock extension tests, because that's a little more realistic. These things are a little bit more tied to exact behavior. Let's change this then, because these are tied to behavior. So how about set up mock setup all tests, right? And actually we will describe setup all. I'm trying to, because we've got a bit of a mixed bag. Yeah, I think I'm going to change it to, when in doubt, match the target, right? And so let's, okay. You can set up all on a mock. How about not on a mock, on a method with a return value. Nice long name. Let's see. You can set up all on a void method. There. So that at least gets us to that. We'll clean this up here. Do you want to go through and clean up some of the names down there real quick? If you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. Because I think once we do this, I am actually going to legitimately go and legitimately actually push this and do it. Okay. I'm also going to go and look. So I think we might even be able to leverage some of the other ones. So actually, if you want to avoid here, we can actually do this. We can pick on, there's services down inside the utils namespace, and we can leverage those. Set up all. Look at what uses this guy. We might just end up invoking directly just to make this thing work. with third parameter, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to look at which of these things. I don't think any of these guys are actually set up to use them. Yeah. So, given that, what we would do is mock.object. The only thing I don't like is that may be a void method, but it doesn't actually have. Looking for one that's void with. We may just end up creating our own service because I think doing it inside of putting our test classes inside of the util namespace would make more sense as well.
Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look like. So the only thing I don't like about service 1 is it has a. Its void method doesn't have any parameters.
Right.
And I think we should fix that. So here's what we're going to do. Boom. Service 6. Void int value. That's kind of the point. And actually, let's not just do int value. String other value. Right, let's prove that it's doing a little more than that. And
right.
then was there a reasonable choice for the non-void return? Yeah, service 4 would work for non-void return, I think. Yeah, let's just use service 4 for the non-void and 6 for the void. Got too many tabs open now. Close up. Save. Okay, now that I've added all of the things, let's see what we can do. Yeah, so service 6. And this becomes service 6. And this becomes 42. Something like that, something like that, something like that. Oh, so we can whack this now. And we can whack this now, right? So, because we shouldn't need Cameron. So for your invocation, rather than going through Cameron, you can just do mock.object and then invoke directly main method name. Because that's all the Cameron class was effectively doing.
Okay.
And then
Thank you.
Like that. That's a little bit nicer. And then I think the only other thing I noticed was over here, we never did go back and clean up the method names. So I'm going to clean those up real quick. So rather than hard coding setup, we'll do mock of object. I'm sorry, what? I don't know why it was being so finicky. Well, let me do an open generic and a name of. No. No, it will not. So there's that. That. Okay. That looks a lot better. Obviously, the XML comments still need to be done. And I think adding in support into AutoMocker directly because it has setup methods, and I think it probably should have setup all equivalents.
Sure.
But I think that's looking a lot better. So let's push some code, shall we? Let's take we will make this big mode. So we've got our mock extensions object. I think this is as we left it. Also, this exception will need to be changed from boom to something more reasonable. Service 6, describe all. Oh, and we've got this file called test1 still sitting around here. So unstage you, because I thought we had eliminated it, or did we not? Nope, we just left it sitting there. So that's fine. Get rid of that. Okay, so this guy sits out on here. Work in progress. Setting up setup all method. And I think we will go through and let's just commit and push this guy. And sure, I've got push access on origin. And view on GitHub. Best button ever. Ever. So we're going to do this. And we don't want to create a, we're going to create a poll. So let's see, proof of concept showing extension method that can automatically do a setup with all parameters as it is any known work to finish. Let's see, clean up exception message, XML docs. Wasn't there a third thing that we said? What else did we have?
Oh, there was.
Oh, the adding similar messages to AutoMocker directly. Adding similar setup all methods to AutoMocker directly. I'm looking for feedback on this idea. Right? What's your GitHub?
It's an excellent question. It starts with the C.
C.
It'd be C Osborne 2. Let's see. It's C Osborne 2.
C. Osborne 2. That?
Yes.
So we're going to do draft pull request because not a ready thing. Oh, look, it did find you. Hey, look, that's you.
Hey.
Surprise. Okay, sweet. And we will. Oh, interesting. Huh. That's both awesome and terrifying all at the same time that our CI is set up to also run on draft PRs. It's kind of convenient though, because maybe you care about the status of a draft PR. But for anyone interested, there is the PR. And if Cameron or somebody wants to go and tackle that or provide feedback, what do you think? Is this something you would use? Does it seem helpful to be able to lazily just say, I want to set up on this method. I don't care about the signature. Please stop bothering me. Because that's kind of what we just did. And you know what's going to happen? there will be the person, probably future Kevin, who goes, I want this method, but I want it is any on all the other parameters, but I want to specify one of them. I'll be that guy. That will be me. Cross that bridge later.
Yeah, that will suck.
There's a certain point where you go, no. No, absolutely not. That is making the API worse, not better. So, well, cool, Cameron. We are roughly at the 2 hour mark, which is really convenient timing.
Thanks for bearing with me. It's incredibly hard to type when people watching. I don't know why that is.
It's I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure there's some internet law that says the more people watching, the worse your typing skill gets. Which is why I have you type some of the time rather than me, because then it's not as obvious how bad of a typer I am. Well, cool. So with that, I will say we'll sign off. We'll see everyone next time. Happy coding.